Good morning, Gamecock fans. Today is Friday, October 24th. Another Friday. Welcome to Coffee with JC Shurburtt. Certainly glad all of you are tuning in today. If you didn't tune in to Tuesday's episode, I continue to get good feedback about that. It's called State of the Union on YouTube and podcast format. Please continue to listen to that episode if you want. I've actually did not realize it would have the feedback that it did, and thankful and grateful for all of the positive feedback on that. You know, you never know. And some people may be mad at me about it, but I don't really give a damn about that. So anyway, check that out on Tuesday. It's Friday, so that means Inside the Gamecocks, the preview show. We all get together, get the band back together. JB, Mad Dog, myself, the late night Gamecock, Matt Anderson pops in, gives his take on the game. We got Chef Will Turner, buffalo chicken dip. I'm curious to see how he makes it today because that's delicious. He comes in, pops in from the great state of Arizona, big Gamecock fan, private chef. Those of you out there that take golfing boys weekends, maybe to Arizona, want to get a private chef, have him come in and cook for you. Also, for our female listeners and females in your life, if you're a male listener, maybe there's a bachelorette party or a girls' weekend. He can fly in and wherever and hook you up. Seems to be very popular. There's magazine articles being written about him out in Arizona and stuff. It's from Andrews, South Carolina, and a big Gamecocks fan. So always nice to catch up with Chef Will. Don't forget, on the Chief Sports app, we have our Chief Sports Flash store. Lots of good stuff, including Nike Gamecock stuff, or Gamecock-ish stuff. It's not all with just the logos from the shows and stuff. We got some of the nice rooster designs that we do. You've seen across social media and things like that. Four-Quarter Friday kicks things off every Friday. High school sports in the state of South Carolina. High school football tonight. They're moving more toward the playoffs. So a lot of big games. I know Burns and Spartanburg's near and dear to my heart. I wish I was. I got a FOMO here. I wish I was back home this weekend because it's my 30th high school reunion. I went to the 20th 10 years ago. Carolina played Georgia that night. I remember it was not that's the night they made Grayson Lambert look like a Heisman Trophy contender. Lost 52-20 Spurriers last year. But I'll be tuning in on the Chief Sports app because it's my school versus my dad's school. My late dad, he's a Spartanburg guy. He always kind of looked his nose down at Burns a little bit, but it's a little more even these days. Burns a little bigger school than when I went there. So certainly looking forward to that. Also on Four-Quarter Friday, you can get that on podcast format on Spotify, Apple, Amazon Music, a lot of different places. And if you like high school sports in general in South Carolina, check it out. So this week, it's not just the Friday show. Steve Hall, our co-host there, has got some interviews. He and Justin Hall interviewed Mickey Wilson, Myrtle Beach football coach, to talk about what used to be the North-South game. It's the Touchstone Energy Bowl now. Big event down there. Really has come a long way. Kids get to go to the beach. Really nice week of events in December. And then River Bluff High School girls golf coach, shout out Meredith Taylor, Roger Smith, previews the girls golf championship. So if you like, high school sports in general, head on over to Spotify, check it out here on YouTube, head on to Apple. Please go subscribe on the podcast channels and rate it 5 stars. SEC Sunday night and late night Gamecock show / Rooster Rant. We also started podcast channels for those this week. For some reason, you can't fit everything in on ITG, and ITG Inside the Gamecocks, where you get this one and the show in the morning show. It's routed through 24/7 Sports and those servers, part of the Big Spurs contract deal with them, but namely me. But for the other ones, it was just too much to get it into the channel every day with 3 shows going through. And so we're going to spread out the love a little bit, but certainly would appreciate you guys doing. Won't cost you a dime to go do that. But we're looking forward to Four-Quarter Friday live, the live version 9 at 9. It's an hour long on the YouTube channel. also on X and on the Chief Sports app. Full slate of high school football games streaming tonight there too. By the way, the Four Quarter Friday show, today's show, will also be up on podcast format around lunchtime. So check that out if you missed the live version, or you can go back on YouTube and watch it. But South Carolina high school football scoreboard show tonight, sports talk tonight, and then a full slate of games streaming. You can check our Instagram account, chiefsportsnetwork.com, here in a little bit to check that out. I have to go to a high school game tonight myself. It's cold now. It's 34 degrees this morning. And so I'm going to bundle up over in the big city of Naperville, Illinois, and then the playoffs start next week. So no idea where I'll end up being. Hopefully it's not down in the southern part of the state or in an unsafe area of Chicago, because when they do that, they end up being on Saturdays. So I don't want to have a conflict with the Gamecocks and the stepson. I kind of tell you, with how things have been going with him and his coaches and playing time and all that, I don't know. That'd be an interesting decision next week for the Ole Miss game. But yeah, by the way, speaking of coaches, there's a story out in Skyline High School in Sammamish, Washington, near Seattle. I've been there. I actually met Will Smith, that Will Smith, yeah. Joe Montana and Wayne Gretzky the same night. Oaks Christian from California was playing Skyline, and I went up there. Carolina was, messed around a little bit with a quarterback, Jake, somebody, kind of don't remember his name. And so I worked for ESPN at the time, and they flew me out, and all these celebrities on the sidelines. I've been to Skyline High School in Seattle before. The parents went to the school board and got the coach. And this coach went to Skyline, played college football, had a cup of coffee in the pros, was coaching in college. Got him suspended because they said he wasn't playing the right players. Ooh. I mentioned that yesterday before the show. I just can't believe that. That's unbelievable. Unbelievable. What kind of lesson are you teaching your kids? I'm not telling anybody else. I mean, you can parent however the hell you want, but don't involve other grown-ass men and adults in this, to prop up your child. I highly doubt, I mean, and these are all sometimes these types of folks that live in these urban areas in the swanky suburbs are just detached from reality completely. That's not a blanket statement, but there's a handful in every suburban area. Most of them are very, I guess, heavily associated with the HOAs in their neighborhood. There's a correlation there, probably. I just, if something like that happened in South Carolina, I mean, God, that's Seattle. I don't really, half that place is whatever. It used to be beautiful. Used to love going there, but I couldn't believe that. Anyway, I just had to mention that real quick as an opener. South Carolina. So anyway, the point of all that is lots of high school sports, lots of Gamecock stuff. Phil and I'll be by with the morning show in the morning to preview the Alabama game. I got to go to a funeral now. I've been to a lot of funerals the last few years, and it's been pretty well documented that a lot of people close to me and that I've known and respected have passed away. But this is someone I don't know. It's on my wife's side. So no need for thoughts and prayers. You give thoughts and prayers, give it to, the person who lost her husband. But got to go to that, and then going to be perched up watching this Alabama game. Kickoff 3:30 p.m. Joe Tessitore is calling the play-by-play. That's pretty good to have him. And Steve Spurrier and members of that 2010 team are going to be in town to try to wake up the echoes, so to speak. Steven Garcia kind of went through and broke down some of the plays from that game. 35-21 win by the Gamecocks over the number one Bama in 2010. And that game was one of the best wins in program history. Some say the best. I think the best win in program history, single win, came, and there's all kinds of different ways to define it. Biggest upset, this, that, and the other. Came against Florida in the Swamp that year because Carolina It was basically the de facto SEC East championship game. Carolina went down there and beat them pretty good. Kind of ran floor. Urban Meyer wasn't like one of the coaches that loses to Carolina and gets fired because there's a list of those. But I don't know. Had he won that game and gotten to Atlanta, would he still have quit? I don't know. The Gamecocks took their soul away that night. That's my favorite. I mean, my number one win. I think Bama would be number two. Obviously, you beat a number one team and all that good stuff. South Carolina's been fortunate in this series in that because of the way the SEC schedule's set up, they didn't have to play Nick Saban's Alabama team very often in the regular season. Now, there were some years like 2012 where Carolina could have given them a game had they gotten to Atlanta. Sometimes, well, in some of those years, like 14, that 14 team, people don't talk about it, but they blew three double-digit leads in the fourth quarter to Tennessee, Kentucky, and Missouri. Missouri ended up winning the division. It was a down year. Um, you win that, hold on in all three of those. Yeah, Carolina's 9-3, but they still go and probably are a sacrificial lamb against Alabama. God, I can't imagine South Carolina in 14 trying to stop Alabama Crimson Tide. But so that's how it kind of went there, that they avoided them. For the most part, they've only played them twice since 2010, and one was in 19, another 3:30 kickoff then on CBS. Close game, competitive game first half, and the Tide pulled away in the second. Carolina was not stopping Tua and those guys. Had a fake punt called back early and then a bad call on Rico Dowdle, who's killing it with the Panthers right now, going into the end zone for a TD that would have made it a touchdown game, 24-16 to 17 and a half. Instead, it was 24-13, and it was just tough. Freshman quarterback, all that. But South Carolina was very competitive. My Bama guy, I mean, he was wrong, but he texted me after that game and said, South Carolina won 8 games this year. They didn't. They won 4. But they did beat Georgia there in a couple of weeks and upset the Dogs. There were some bright spots that season. That season just ended up going. But that was 2019. And then last year, South Carolina goes down to Tuscaloosa, 21-point underdog. And I think in that game, that's when Carolina started to re-find itself. I've said before, that's when they found themselves and really got it going. But really, if you think about it, those games were probably Kentucky and LSU last year. LSU is just a series of unfortunate events with the bad calls, plus Lenore Sellers got hurt, and he was rolling in that game. So lots of bad things happened in that football game, and then he gets hurt. So then you have a period with Akron on an open date and an Ole Miss. Everybody's kind of 70%. That was a bad game. 3-3 at that point. And then at Bama, they are 3-2 at that point. Then at Bama, they played them off their rear ends, almost won, and the rest is history. So there's only 2 times these teams have played. They haven't played often at all. South Carolina has beaten Alabama 3 times since joining the SEC. Once, first one ever, because before the SEC, Carolina had never beaten Alabama. 37-36. That was a fantastic game. Phil Petty to Rod Trafford late. 37-36. Tide came in, and Carolina, Tyler Watts was the quarterback in 01, and Carolina was a favorite in that one. Carolina couldn't stop the option. For some reason, they sprung it on it. Dennis Franchione was the coach at Bama at the time. Had a 36-24 lead, and then Carolina comes back and then scores and wins the game. I was in the stands for that one. And then in 04, Carolina goes down to Tuscaloosa and wins 20-3. Mike Shula was the coach at Alabama that season. They had massive quarterback issues, so the Gamecocks beat them. And then we have the 09 game. That was a loss. And then 2010, Carolina won. 19 was a loss, and last year was a loss. Before that, Spurrier lost to them in 2005 at home. Mike Shula was the coach then. 37-14. He had a healthy quarterback at that point. And that doesn't mean anything about Mike Shula now. I mean, it was 20 years ago. I don't want you to, oh gosh, he has a quarterback now. Yeah. That's not the topic here. It's kind of history. Before that, Alabama and Carolina 2000. That was a tough loss because that Alabama team finished 3-8, but Phil Petty was hurt in the previous week. Eric Kimry started, played pretty well. Carolina just couldn't come back, couldn't stop the run that day. I'm trying to go back in time. And then the first time they played was in Williams-Brice was 93. Competitive game, Bama won 17-6. And then 92, I think Dabo Swinney talks about that game. He was on that Bama team. They won 48-7. Good news in that one was Sparky Woods played Steve Tannehill in the fourth quarter and then started him the next week against Mississippi State, and the rest is history. So not a lot of history between the Tide and Gamecocks, but there has been some memorable moments through the years with regards to the University of Alabama and South Carolina. You talk to folks in the state of Alabama, it's an interesting dynamic. For years, Alabama fans had a lot of respect for the Gamecocks, probably because they had gotten beat by them. Auburn did not lose a game to South Carolina until 2020. And so Auburn fans don't really have a whole lot, didn't really have historically. When you talk to them, it's just little old South Carolina. Alabama's like, God, watch out for South Carolina, which is weird because Alabama's obviously been the superior program through the years. I was listening to Bill Curry, who coached at Alabama, left his alma mater, Georgia Tech, to go take that job, and then ended up leaving. He thought he was probably going to get fired and took Kentucky at the end of his career. Coached at Georgia State when they first started too. Bill Curry probably should have stayed at Georgia Tech because he had it going there, but they interviewed him on some show about Alabama. And I want to say this. Alabama is one of the greatest football programs in the history of the sport. You can't, don't take this as South Carolina could be Alabama. It take 100 years to catch up. Sometimes it's a tortoise. In college football, there's no tortoise in the hare. It's just the hare, because just the tortoise. Although it seems like it's the hare. The hares end up getting caught and eaten. You got to kind of slow and steadily do it sometimes, if you're not one of the ones that already has gotten to the finish line or broken through, whatever analogy you want to use. But here's what he said about the Alabama job, and this is interesting. He said the players in Alabama, from Alabama, now they recruit nationally now, obviously, and Saban did it, DeBoer did it. They get really good ballers there. But the core of that program is always going to be football talent from the state of Alabama. The kids in Alabama have an edge to them. And he said, and you knew that when you got in the fourth quarter in a close game, those guys were going to be confident because they expect to win. It's mental. There's a lot of, South Carolina this year has had a lot of mental things, probably nothing to do with confidence and all that. It's more, plays and stuff. But just in general, I'm talking not this year's team, but in general, at Alabama, that's an advantage. And I never thought of it that way. Yeah, I just thought, you get trophies and money and facilities and all that. And they're not, University of Alabama has money because of their success. It's not like Texas or Tennessee where they're just kind of have money, And, they expect to go out there and win. I think that's also true with Auburn. If you ever notice that the Iron Bowl games are highly competitive, but because there's this, there's kind of a dog in a lot of these Alabama players. They get some dog in them. It's a state that is about 200,000 less than South Carolina population wise. Obviously, land mass, it's a larger state than South Carolina. Just like South Carolina, there's two major football programs that drive a lot of passion. They're just not both in the SEC. In their state, both have been wildly successful at times, and they have national championships. We only have one school in our state that has done that. I think here's the hope is that you talk to folks around the country, and you talk to folks inside the Gamecock football program through four different staffs. South Carolina players have a little dog in them, like Alabama. For whatever reason, there's not as many, although the populations are similar. Maybe there are, and they just get overlooked. But there's no reason other than history. And history repeats itself. We all know that. We all know there's volcano programs. We all know tradition um, drives it in college football sometimes. But there's no reason why South Carolina can't be, setup wise. If you took all the history away and started a football program in Tuscaloosa and started one in Columbia, both of those programs are sitting equally resource wise as far as access to talent and all that. Maybe in Alabama there's more industry, maybe they have a little bit more commitment, but all those things I think are functions of success through a long time. Um, if you just took all that away, there's not a lot of difference. Same setup. So, hearing Bill Curry say that, and we talk about this a lot in the offseason with recruiting and stuff. I still think this program at South Carolina is set up well. I think, given the fact that in the portal era, you can't build what Nick Saban built or what Kirby Smart had for 2 years. I mean, Missouri and Vanderbilt are playing this weekend for probably a playoff berth. Game day is in Nashville. You know why? Because it's not that, oh, these teams don't have as much talent. I think talent, there's raw talent, meaning potential. And then there's real current talent. Like, this guy's good. He's going to win a matchup with your 5-star that you have over there most of the time. They found players in the portal, and most importantly, if you think about it, they've got good schemes. Good schemes, both sides of the ball at Missouri and Vandy. And I think that that's going to start to matter more and more and more. Ellis Johnson's correct when he says you can't really outcoach people in the SEC. And I think what he meant by that is, you need to have players. You can't just have average players and go out and, that's probably good for an upset every now and then. But you have to get close talent level wise. And this roster at Carolina, I mean, I'm not telling you anything Shane Beamer didn't say on the call-in show and the press conference and publicly the last few weeks. There's talent on this team, and I think that it's just got to be optimized, and it may not happen this year. I'll be honest. It may be a squandered year, which is a tough pill to swallow. But as far as the hope goes, because I see some folks around, oh, well, it's never, oh, talking about, well, Georgia has so much more talent. That's not the case anymore if you really look at it. Now, they got dudes. Everybody's got dudes. And again, Kentucky, who really actually is talent deficient in some spots and almost knocked off Texas, who, although they're reverting to how they normally are, they've always had more talent than everybody else. So talent and access to talent, and then those intangibles I talked about with the Alabama kids, you can apply those to the South Carolina kids too. What do we think they need more of to be successful at the University of South Carolina team wise? I think confidence, and not confidence, but pride. I think they do have a lot of pride. Every player in there has a lot of pride. But I think that there probably needs to over the years with winning, get more of that expect to win mentality in there. And you can only do that. You can have any coach you want. Because I know Beamer expects to win. He expects to win tomorrow. But it's got to happen through the years where you expect to win. Now, sometimes pressure comes with that. But, I thought that was just very interesting and applicable what Bill Curry said about the University of Alabama's football program. And they're good this year, folks. They're a lot more, like I said, like Kalen DeBoer's team at Washington. That's kind of how they set up. They are big and physical, and they got dudes, players. The matchups, we'll go through that real quick and then we'll get out because it's always a shorter coffee on Friday. You got two different types of matchups here. You've got player to player, like Ty Simpson versus Lenore Sellers, that kind of thing. Um, and Alabama's got the advantage at every single one of them. So just letting you know. And some of the margins that I think after researching it and crunching it down, watching them are significant. Quarterback Alabama, I'd say right now 63-37 over Sellers. It's not a talent thing. That's just a right now thing. I mean, the pass, as much as everybody talks about running the ball, Carolina hadn't thrown it well. Now, a lot of that's because of pressure and stuff, but they don't throw for very many yards. They don't call that many pass plays. Or maybe they call them and they don't work. I don't know, man. Passing maybe the fact the it's probably just the whole offense that's affecting the numbers there. But after peaking at 302, and then for some reason against Kentucky, which has a bad secondary, they just decide they want to just run it instead of getting passers and receivers into a rhythm. And I don't know, man. Anyway, right now, Ty Simpson's playing at such a high level, 63-37 Bama. Running back, got to say 59-41 Bama. Jam Miller's good. Up and down, running the ball they are, but, Carolina just hadn't done much. Poor Matt Fuller, just slam him up in the middle all that time. Faison got loose on the one big run. I don't know. He needs room. Like I said, the offseason, the running back, you just need room. I'll tell you this right now. I'd continue to see if there was somebody in that room that hadn't played that maybe can give you a spark. And they talk about doing personnel. I mean, is Jawarn Howell going to be able to get further? Uh, I don't know. Not. I mean, and I'm not saying I love Jawarn Howell. I think in a different style of offense, yes. Yes. He and Augusta both. Offensive line 75-25, Bama, maybe more. The only reason I went to 25 is because Carolina's healthy up front. By the way, no injuries. Case of injuries out for the year. Freshman D tackle Caleb Williams, who hadn't played anyway, broke his leg last week, which is unfortunate in practice. Tight end 62-38, Bama. The tight ends, I'm kind of down on them now. Just looking, they're struggling to block. They don't get the ball. I don't know if that's their fault. I don't know if it's correlated. Defensive backs, Alabama's got some big play guys back there. I give them an edge of 55-45. Defensive line, still got to go Bama 57-43. Linebacker, Bama 52-48. And that's just because they've had some injuries back there. That's not a position that they're good on, but Fred Johnson, Justin Okoronkwo, I still like them. Sean Murphy made some good plays against Oklahoma, by the way, signs of life, but they're kind of swimming right now. Carolina absolutely needs them to have really good games. I mean, Okoronkwo played at Alabama, so he should be up for it. Same with Monkel Goodwine, and same with Sean Murphy, who did stop over at Florida State before ending up at Carolina, but he was at Bama. Special teams are a push, especially with Vakari Swain returning. Mason Love has punted really well this year, thank God. So now this is when it gets crazy, like the matchup. South Carolina O-line versus Bama D-line. Alabama 90-10. That's a mismatch. Carolina D-line versus Bama O-line. Bama 56-44. South Carolina run game versus Alabama defense. I'm going to go Bama 65-35 there. And it's just because they haven't always stopped the run. South Carolina run D, pass game versus Alabama D, 64-36 Bama. Because, I mean, Carolina hadn't thrown it very far. I mean, Bama's given up some yards this year. They haven't got very far. Alabama pass game versus Gamecock secondary, 67-33, Alabama. Alabama run game versus South Carolina run defense, 68-32, Bama. Look, in SEC play outside of Kentucky, this defense is giving up significant amounts of yardage. I think they still rank higher nationally than Bama in run D, but 70 or so. But it's It's been an adventure. Vandy ran for 146, Missouri 285. That was crazy. Then the Kentucky game, LSU and Oklahoma both came into the game not being able to run the ball and were able to. That's got to change if Carolina's going to have any chance because Bama's going to get theirs. Ty Simpson and those receivers are going to get theirs. You have to make sure you're not getting gashed in the run game. And then how do you it's 3rd and 4. They can call anything they want, and they will. They're good play callers. Um, Special teams is a push. I've never done a coaching comparison, but I think they've got obviously heading into it, got the advantage. You never know though. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. And finally, just to wrap up the offensive discussion for the week, Brooks Austin, who one's a watch film breakdown guy. He's a film guy. A lot of respect for his takes. I agree with him. I certainly agree with this. And so he goes and he's like, pray for me. I'm about to go study South Carolina's offense. It's at Brooks Austin BA on X. And he literally comes back and says, we've decided to sit one out. Sit on this one. They've got riots outside the stadium. They know it's bad. There's not, I mean, that is hyperbole. I mean, that's a little, there was a 20-person protest on campus, I guess. No sense in piling on. And I'm like, wow. But here's what he said. I was looking for bad process. First play, jet sweep with Harbor, who's jetting with the 6'5", 235-pound build speed guy. I don't know. I mean, I like the jet sweep, and every now and then to give it to Harbor's fine because it's kind of unexpected. But I mean, we were talking about Jared Brown yesterday. Where's he been? You have other fast, darty guys that are probably a little more elusive that can shake somebody on the edge. Then he goes, why no hot routes built into a system that can't protect? Bingo. No idea there. And then why do you insist on living in bunch formations? You can't block 5 with 5. No point in failing to block 9 with 9. All things I've said. And this guy knows the ins and outs of film better than me. Here's the overall thing I'm going to leave you folks with. Number one, just want to say, if you're going to the game, don't stay home. Just go to the game. There's a load of big time recruits that are going to be in there because it's the Alabama game. Go, yell, whatever. If they don't play well, leave early. Have some beers. You only get 12 of them. I would say go put on a brave face and go if you're able to the game. And I think a lot of you will. I mean, if you can't, whatever, tune in, whatever. So don't get down on yourselves. But number two, I'll leave you with this thought for the weekend. And hopefully maybe it changes tomorrow. Who knows? Like I've said, Beamer's not going to tell anybody if he's changed play callers. Look at this program under Beamer. And this is a shocking thing. Because think about who he is as a coach. Out of the box. His practices are different. And not bad. They focus on a lot of competition things and stuff like that. No issues. Obviously, practice is going well. So, you look at kind of what he wants. He said a couple of times, "I want teams to be uncomfortable when they play us," and that's perfect. Look at what he does. He'll dial up go for it on 4th down in a heartbeat. Sometimes it blows up in his face, but he does that to his point. And I'm going to circle back to that on offense specifically. The special teams are always to the point where you keep other teams on their toes. I'm not talking about the fake punt, the ones that haven't worked or whatever. Carolina does that stuff enough to where what it causes is a lot of headaches during the week for opposing coaches. And what that means, they're not spending time on other things. It's because some coaches don't emphasize special teams like they do at Carolina. I think it's one of those points of pride. But from Pete Limbo and then Joe DeCamillis too, they've been very aggressive on special teams, just like Virginia Tech was, and they're dangerous. And so that's kind of a different thing. And they do some different types of schemes and stuff on teams. And so that part of it's good. Clayton White's defensive system is not. It's different than the others that have been successful here. And they will give up points and yards. And I think a lot of that's just the nature of playing good offense, but it's creative. It's fun to play in. Go back and listen to what Nicky Manware said on the LSU pick six that was called back, or not a six in that game. That was kind of a thing where he can switch his assignment real time. And he's good enough to do that and just sit back there. I mean, all that stuff on defense they do is very, very, very creative. And I'm not saying it works all the time, because when you get creative on defense, you gamble. But up at Clemson, Tom Allen is not a gambler. The other guys were. The guy from Wes Goodwin, who's out at Oklahoma now. I'd take the gambling, because at least you have a chance, and you have games where you're getting after it, and people can. I've seen Clemson's defense. So what? They got after Sellers. I mean, they couldn't stop Sellers from running the ball last year, and they really couldn't stop the run a lot last year, because that defense will give up runs if you crease them right. But I'd take it over this year. So you have a kind of exotic, um, aggressive, different type of defensive scheme. They recruit a certain mentality with players. They, go with length in the defensive backfield. There's a lot that I've always said Carolina needs to be a little different. There's a lot that's different. But you're going to do all that, and then offense, man, you're just talking about insisting on running the ball out of tight formations, and honestly, Dowell Loggins did a good job spreading the field, but the other two have been in this bunch stuff crap over and over, and they had it under Dowell too, but they spread it out. First thing Dowell Loggins talked about was hash marks and space, and last year there was more space. We could talk about is he or is he not a good play caller? That's not a discussion I'm trying to have right now about Dowell Loggins. I'm just looking at the operation and process of it. And then for Brooks Austin to say that's damning. That's damning. And because it's one thing for me to sit here and say it and all that, he who could not see in 3D, but it's quite another for somebody that breaks down film all the time, is pretty damn good at doing it. It just reinforces why this is a disaster, and it also reinforces too with Sellers, everybody that wants to get on Sellers. You just had somebody that watched film that said there's no hot route when you can't protect. Why no hot route? Hot route, I mean, they did that in backyard football and Wedding Crashers. I mean, it's fundamental. There's nothing there. There's a lot of plays for that Oklahoma game. You look at, there's space all, go Smitty, what's his name? Mr. Smitty. He does film too. He's a Gamecock. I watched one of his takes the other day, and he's just drawing a circle around nothing but green grass where the block C is. Why? That even goes beyond that it's NFL style. I have no idea, what causes that. But it's all restricted. You can't block anyway. I mean, there's no philosophy out there in college football, and maybe this is an NFL thing, that says, you're going to be able to block better if everybody's bunched in there like rugby. So I don't understand that. Because Shane Beamer, again, you look at it, aggressive, creative defense, aggressive, creative special teams, offense, restrictive, boring, NFL style. There is not a single example in college football where they've taken an NFL offense and come in and been super successful. I mean, this offense is a lot like, Miami when they were married to this crap for years. When they first got into the ACC, because that's what they'd always done under Jimmy Johnson and all that. That's what we do. We're pro style. And friends of mine, we're always sat there and talk. We're like, you can throw a rock and hit five fast receivers and spread the field. I mean, you're not getting the linemen. The game's changed. So, and they finally evolved. Finally, at some point, I think during the Al Golden era, they evolved. But you just can't, South Carolina's never done that well because and yeah, what I said earlier about there's not a lot of teams with overwhelming talent anymore, and there's not. Well, the same's true at South Carolina. So, you're in an era now where nobody is going to have overwhelming talent. You're closer with talent, but yet you're running an offense that to be even a little bit successful has to be they have to have dudes all over the place. And even then, it's not the most fun and exciting and creative thing. So I don't understand it. You got a coach that likes to be aggressive and creative. You've got defense and special teams that are aggressive and creative. They're aggressive and creative in recruiting. Everything about this program is a little different and aggressive and creative, except offense. And I don't understand it. That is a mystery to me. I'll never get it. I'll never for the life of me get it. And like I said, if Dowell Loggins was the OC of this team right now, they wouldn't be where they are because he would have just kept on keeping on. Obviously, the thought was Shula would do it. He hasn't. He's changed things. And I thought, well, he's going to change the things that really didn't work and get them even better. No, 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 no. He reverted. And that's okay. Like I said, I don't blame him. He's doing the best he can with what he knows. But I don't understand at all why, for three different hires, really four, although Mike Bobo's a college coordinator, he does kind of run pro style stuff. I think he's pretty good, but it's still that style. For the life of me, I don't understand why these three directions were gone. I don't understand why Marcus Satterfield lasted more than half a year here. I get Dowell. Like I said, I think he actually did pretty good. Make C plus or whatever. The other two have been Fs, and then the Shula thing is just it's. I'm not even angry. I'm sad. I hate it for the guy, the play caller. Hate it for the team, the players. Hate it for Shane Beamer. But as we look forward, it needs to fit. If you're going to be aggressive, I mean, one more thing. Clemson won 2 national championships, right? And again, this is not about somebody inevitably will say they had 2 generational quarterbacks. They did. But what Dabo do scheme wise? I mean, he's running Alabama's old defense with Kevin Steele, which was not going to work. And then he brings in Venables. He's running Billy Napier was his OC. I think we've seen Napier's offensive philosophy. What does he do? He brings in Chad Morris, and away we go. That wasn't even a different era of football, really, when you talk about scheme and stuff. I mean, the RPOs came along later, and I think Chad Morris ran a lot of those. So why? Why? I mean, yes, Dabo had to go. Dabo was aggressive and said, we're going to be aggressive on both sides of the ball and let the chips fall where they may. The Carolina's plenty aggressive on defense. Offense, I don't understand it through 5 years. And hopefully that changes. Prediction this weekend, I had got to go with Alabama 27-10. I think there'll be some good moments for the Gamecocks. They'll try hard. They've been trying. I think Alabama's just too good, but you never know. It's only a 12.5-point spread, and maybe there have been some changes to kind of get those guys out of the box and all that. Anyway, folks, see you on the preview show later. Don't forget 4-quarter Friday, all the high school action. See you on the preview show, and then Phil and I, the Mad Dog, will be back in the morning for the tailgate show. And again, friendly reminder, just enjoy the game. Because once it's all over, then the waiting begins 9 months, and that sucks. All right. Talk to you soon, folks. Been a great week. JC Shurburtt's Coffee's out.
JC and Mad Dog Mully.